heroin and 80% of the cocaine that is consumed in the United States. And he says he needs U.S. help to stop the flow, which won't be easy because Pastrana is also battling left-wing guerrillas who've taken over parts of his country, plus right-wing death squads. And to make matters even worse, both the left wing and the right are making big money from drugs, while Pastrana's government is broke and his army is weak. No wonder Pastrana says he has the worst job in the world. It is also one of the most dangerous. Up in New York, as I was about to leave, people say, "You're going where?" "Colombia." "Colombia?" Well, watch out. Be careful. Colombia used to be coffee. Colombia today is drugs, disaster, death. I mean, seriously, this is the perception,
yes,
certainly in the United States.
Definitely. I cannot say that that's not true. Unfortunately, that's what the people know about Colombia. But you have to think something, Mike, that is very important for us. We are fighting the largest criminal organization in the world.
And Pastrana calls the drug war the first real world war.
This is a global war. This is not a Colombian war. What happened here, it will have an impact on the United States. And you know yourselves, even inside the United States, know how difficult it is to fight these criminal organizations. And in the case of Colombia, we have sacrificed our best journalists, politicians, army, policemen. They have died in this war. And that's why we need to unite all our efforts to try to defeat our common enemy, that is narco-trafficking.
And it is narco-trafficking that helps fund Pastrana's other homegrown enemies. On the one side, left-wing guerrillas, on the other, right-wing death squads. The leftists have been fighting a civil war there for decades. They have taken over a third of the country, mostly sparsely populated mountains and jungle, and they're becoming increasingly powerful thanks to drug money. For narco-traffickers in guerrilla territory have to pay taxes plus protection money to the guerrillas to keep the Colombian government from destroying their drug crops. And these guerrillas are making a fortune. Probably $500 million protecting the narco-traffickers. Yes?
The figure we have, Mike, is the business could be between $1 to $2 million a day.
Still, Pastrana hopes to persuade them to make peace. Why in the dickens would they want to make peace with you? So they're going to sit down with Andres Pastrana and say, "Come, let's make peace." Okay. And we'll bankrupt ourselves in the process.
I think that they want to go into a democratic process. I think that they...
What leads you to believe that?
Because they've said it.
The guerrilla war spawned Pastrana's other problem. Those right-wing paramilitary death squads formed by wealthy landowners to fend off the guerrillas. The death squads slaughter 1,000 civilians a year, people merely suspected of leftist sympathies. Pastrana can't do much about any of this because his army is weak and his country is broke in a terrible recession. So he's asking for massive aid from the United States, up to $1 billion a year, 3 times what he's getting now, for his plan to save Colombia.
The Colombian plan is a $7.5 billion. We, Colombia, we are putting $4 billion.
$4 billion. You're asking for what, 4 billion?
We are asking $3.5 billion, and we hope to get most of them from the United States.
Correct.
So, money for, first of all, modernization of our armed forces, retraining our army, professionalizing our army. So we're bringing each year 10,000 new men as professional to our army to fight the insurgency.
In other words, career army people?
That's right.
A stronger army, he says, could curtail the drug trade, which would cut the drug money going to the guerrillas. And he says if the guerrillas got less money and also had to face a stronger military, they'd be more willing to make peace. Then, if the Civil War ends, the right-wing death squads could disband. All this may sound like pie in the sky.
Buenos días, señor presidente.
But Pastrana is used to uphill fights. He's been risking his life fighting the drug lords for years. In the 80s, he was a television reporter exposing drug traffickers. Then he ran for mayor of the capital city, Bogota, and a drug lord sent goons to his campaign headquarters to kidnap him.
And they went inside the headquarters, into my office, put a gun in my head and said, "You are kidnapped." So they put me in a car, and they put me in the trunk of the car. So there I start by saying, how I'm going to breathe. You know, I'm going to be in the trunk of this car, and how I am going to breathe here, where these guys take me, a little claustrophobia. But the problem, Mike, was that they put me with one of my kidnappers in the trunk of the car.
Two of you in the trunk?
That's right. So I was, what I'm going to do? You know, this guy with a UC machine on my head, and I was trying to breathe, and these guys start, you know, going all over the city very, very fast.
Pastrana's wife, Nora, first heard about it on the radio.
I thought I was a widow when my husband was kidnapped.
You are both devout Catholics, I'm told.
Yes.
When he was kidnapped, boy, I prayed a lot.
We prayed.
He prayed a lot also.
After a week in captivity, Pastrana was freed when the police, by chance, discovered where he was held. And at the age of 35, he was elected mayor of Bogota. He was a rising star, born to be president. His father had been president in the 1970s, but the son's political career suffered a setback when he too ran for president 5 years ago. You ran for president in 1994?
1994.
And lost, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And left the country. Why? For your personal safety.
First was personal safety.
But why should a presidential candidate who loses here in Colombia have to, for his own personal safety,
fly away?
Leave the country? Because Pastrana had charged that the man who beat him in the election, Ernesto Samper, had been backed by drug money. You said that the former president, Samper, in effect, was a crook. Which he was.
Yeah, the money of drugs came into his campaign. I said.
So you said it, and you knew darn well that if you hung around having lost, they'd probably shoot you.
Maybe.
Muchas gracias.
Then Pastrana surprised everyone when he returned to run for president in 1998, and he won. His persistence wins high praise from Isaac Lee, the managing editor of Colombia's largest weekly news magazine, Semana. As soon as Andres Pastrana was elected, you said he is Colombia's Ronald Reagan. What do you mean?
He's charming, convincing, full of energy, new ideas without being too deep on certain subjects, and was very good at media.
And you remain a fan, so to speak?
No, I'm not a fan of any president at all. I didn't even vote for him, but I have to admit that there are certain qualifications that he has. It's important for Colombia to have an honest president. Nobody doubts that Pastrana is an honest president, that he's determined, that he has will, and that he's doing everything he can to have peace.
And peace talks have, in fact, begun, but they're moving very slowly. To make his overall plan work, Pastrana has put his faith in his friend Bill Clinton to come up with the cash he needs. After all, he says, when America helped wipe out the drug crops in Bolivia and Peru, that pushed drug production over into Colombia. And he says it is America's demand for drugs that is at the root of Colombia's problems. When you go north and you talk to President Clinton and so forth, do you say, hey, fellas, why don't you do something up in the United States about
demand?
About demand.
That's right.
What do you tell them?
Always, I said to them, look, even if we win this war in Colombia, someone is going to supply the United States if you don't control demand in the United States. Someone.
And what do they say to you?
That they are committed in doing that they want to put more money, that they want to get more money invested in drug prevention, drug education.
Famous last words.
Yes.
We've heard them.
That's right.
And over.
I agree with you.
We flew with the president to Cali, where the drug war has taken a surprising turn. Cali, Colombia is famous, or infamous, for the Cali drug cartel, which the government here wiped out several years ago, along with the Medellin cartel. But ironically, smashing Colombia's two big cartels only made the problem worse. Now there are dozens of smaller drug gangs moving more illegal drugs than ever to the United States. And those drug gangs have been setting off bombs recently to warn Pastrana not to extradite indicted drug dealers to face trial in the United States. The U.S. wants Colombia to extradite 40 of their prisoners who've been indicted in the States. This car bomb killed 8 people, injured more than 30. But within hours of the explosion, Pastrana signed an order to extradite an accused heroin kingpin, making this man the first Colombian to be extradited in almost 10 years. Back in 1990, a wave of bombings had forced the government to stop the extraditions. But Pastrana vows that while he is president, more bombs will only lead to more extraditions.
News is breaking in the middle of this trip, yes?
In Cali, the president received more terrible news. He learned that his friend Bill Clinton would not ask the U.S. Congress for more aid money for Colombia in the new budget.
But we need it now. I think
I know you need it.
We need now. We need the aid now.
So this is a big setback for now.
Yes.
So Pastrana, caught between the left and the right in Colombia, is now also caught between Republicans and Democrats in Washington. Each party wants the other to propose the aid and thus be held responsible for spending so much money. And while they play a game of chicken, Colombia is getting plucked.
We feel that Colombia is like the ham in the sandwich.
Yes. But between the Republicans and the Democrats.
Exactly.
Pastrana believes the drug fight has to be bipartisan in the United States and says he still expects to get the aid because, again like Ronald Reagan, he is an optimist.
I said to me, imagine if I was so pessimistic in this area.
Pastrana knows what he wants and what he doesn't want. And he does not want American troops.
Definitely no.
Absolutely not.
Mike, while I am president of Colombia, there's not going to be any U.S. intervention.
But your own citizens here in Colombia want it. The polls say 50 to 60% of Colombians want U.S. troops down here.
You have to know Colombians. They change so many times what happened inside, I imagine, the same in the United States. You know Colombia. You were in Vietnam, in the fight of Vietnam. If you see the geographic of this country, yes. Oh my God, it's fighting in this country is very, very difficult. You know, we have 3 mountain chains. People of Colombia, I don't think that they want intervention. They don't want more war. They want peace.
In fact, spurred by Pastrana's peace talks, millions of people all across Colombia took to the streets this fall for the first time to demand peace.
You saw people on the streets saying, no más, no more violence, no more kidnapping. That's what we Colombians want, peace. And that's the message. We don't want more violence in Colombia.